All right. Hi. Okay, so this is my third or fourth mom life chat where I bring moms in to talk to us about how they do life with kids. So this is Kendra, and I'll let you introduce yourself.
Yeah, so I am a mom with a 3-year-old. It's a big deal. I'm surviving potty training this week.
Oh my gosh,
So
that's like the scariest time.
it's a big milestone.
Yes, it is.
Lots of bribery and wine. Um, so yeah, I live in Nebraska and I am an entrepreneur. So yeah,
So you're a work at home mom.
yes.
That's even harder.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so what are your favorite things to do for self-care? And how do you fit in time for that?
That's a big thing.
Yeah.
Self-care is a big
Or
thing.
do you do that?
Yeah. So, what I love to talk about when it comes to self-care is that, oftentimes I think we think of like the bubble baths or like the small acts of self-care. And I don't want to completely write those off because I think it is really important to like weave some things into your day. Some of those things that I love to do for myself is doing my own nails, um, doing my hair. Like a lot of people will go get their nails done, and you can do that too. But I prefer to do it myself. It's just kind of therapeutic and relaxing for me. Um, but the bigger thing for self-care that I love to talk about is actually like with your mental health, is learning how to set boundaries with your time, learning how to speak to yourself kindly. All that personal development stuff, I think, is such an important part of self-care that often people overlook. And
So
so,
more of like a mental thing rather than a physical thing that you're doing.
yeah. And the physical and mental are connected, one thing that I have done for my self-care is to educate myself about my monthly cycle and how that affects my energy levels and my ability to function and my productivity. So I kind of know, like, when that time of the month is coming up, I don't schedule a lot of things. I allow myself more rest. And when I know, I'm on the opposite side of the month, then I can schedule more things. So,
So how many days out of the month do you schedule for like downtime for like low energy?
typically about 2 or 3 days is
Oh,
all
that's not
I
bad.
schedule. No, it's not bad. And it's one of those things too where it's not like strict scheduling. I think as far as self-care for me, it's such a fluid thing. Like I have really had to learn awareness of like the physical and the mental so that I know like, hey, I had planned a really productive day, but it's just not going to happen, and have the grace for that. Like that's
Yeah,
a huge part of self-care too.
that's
But
very
also,
hard.
yeah, but it can go the other way too. Like, hey, like I wasn't going to do anything today, but I'm actually feeling some momentum. I think I'm going to lean into it.
That's easier to do than the other way.
Yeah. So that's kind of the biggest thing for self-care that I have done is maybe awareness, is just
And
tuning.
I haven't heard anybody say that yet.
Yeah.
So I like that. I need to start doing that.
That's been
So
huge.
what are your favorite things to do with your daughter, and how much time do you guys get one-on-one together? What do you guys do? Like for anything like fun or educational?
Yeah. I actually have a little boy. His name's Isaac.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, totally fine. But I am home with him most of the day. I do part of my, my routine, my passion and my self-care is fitness exercise instructor. So I usually teach in the mornings and he gets to hang out with grandma and grandpa. And then I have him most of the day. And so we love to have snuggle time.
Aww.
There are sometimes, yeah, because I am a working mom, there's a lot of days where I kind of just say, I set him up with his tablet or his puzzles or his toys, and he's pretty independent for the most part. But we love going on outings, going to the zoo. Yesterday we went to like a drive-through safari. So
that's cool.
Yeah, so trying to find, again, kind of like self-care, like finding the flow of like the little things to incorporate, but also the bigger things. It's a balance to find. So I try to find those little moments during the day. And
So,
like I said, yeah, go ahead.
so if you're working at home, um, or you said they're with the grandparents?
Yeah, he's with grandma and grandpa usually while I'm out teaching, and then I'll go pick him up and bring him home.
Okay. So how do you juggle while you're working at home?
It's tricky. It's hard. It's knowing that I have to get things done in small chunks of time. Mm-hmm. So usually I usually try to prioritize like eating our dinners together, but during the day, like with lunch or with snack time, it's usually a really good time for him to be occupied.
Yeah.
While I can get some work done. So yeah. I know it's like, it's a little bit not normal because I feel like I would get a lot of shame or like guilt for like, oh my gosh, all your meal times together, you know? And I'm like, well, like I do.
Well, not if you're doing it like every single day, breakfast, lunch, dinner. It doesn't need to be like a strict
thing. Right. It's for me, it's about finding the balance, you know, of do that when you can, but also know that like, hey, he's shoving a snack in his face and it's going to keep him busy. I can get something done.
Yeah. And sometimes if they're sitting there eating, you're not really talking while they're eating. They might be just eating or whatever. So,
right.
And 3 times a day, they'll probably be like over it. So that 1 time a day dinner is nice.
Yeah, definitely. And then the rest of the time, I think is just about setting up his environment for success. I used to work in childcare for a couple of years, and that was something that I became really, really passionate about is, you know, as caregivers, rather than like just trying to manage classroom behavior, I was like, hey, why don't we actually like take a preventative approach and make sure they can function and explore well on their own and learn through play. And so I've carried that into parenthood, where it's like, you know, if he's getting bored with his toys, then he's going to be more likely to need my attention and my help. Mm-hmm. So I really try to focus on like setting up different stations. He like when I have a desk in my office, and I got him a little desk, like he has a little table and chairs, and he loves to sit there, you know, work on his coloring books or do his ABC puzzles. So just trying to like rotate toys and like setting him up with a variety of choices.
Okay. Yeah, I've been looking into the toy situation because there's so many toys and so many pieces for the toys. So if you're working, you turn your back for 30 minutes, like not that you're not paying attention, but they could destroy a room in 30 minutes. So I started packaging, I have it right here. I package mine in bags, and then I'll just keep out like the main piece, and then he'll be like, where's the blocks for that? And then he has to like check it out almost. So that's helpful too. But then you'd have to kind of be on top of it. You'd have to like stop and like put it in the bag. So it teaches them a lesson too. Yeah. But that's my new thing that I just started doing. But I was looking into the rotation thing.
Yeah.
So are you married?
I am. I'm transitioning. We're about to go through divorce, so I'm kind of transitioning into single parenthood. But
are you comfortable with talking about that? Because I'm sure it might be helpful, like to somebody else in this group.
Yeah, definitely. We were married about 7 years ago, and my son is 3. So I think when I started noticing issues in our marriage was actually shortly around the time my son was born. And, you know, I think transitioning into parenthood is a huge transition for everybody, right? Moms and dads. It affects your relationship. And I wouldn't say that necessarily that transition like ruined our marriage, but I think it just amplifies the underlying things that were already existing.
Yeah.
Right. And
the thing that you kind of brushed under the rug.
Yeah.
And now it's important.
Yeah. And so for us, like, I think there was a number of things that we didn't see at the time when we got married, a number of just like compatibility issues, different goals and dreams for life that, when we got married, I think we were kind of naive too. Mm-hmm. And so as, you know, we had a child, those things would start coming up, and just noticing different character traits. And So part of it for me was feeling really unsupported by my spouse. And I think that is pretty common when you first have a kid for a lot of moms. I think as moms, we put a lot of pressure on ourselves. And sometimes instead of asking for help, it's easier to just do it ourselves. Like, especially if you're a nursing mom, like, you know, he can say he's going to get up in the middle of the night and bottle feed, but when you're like full in the middle of the night, it's just easier to go nurse the baby, right?
Yeah.
So again, like that wasn't like what tore us apart, but it's a small example.
All the
like,
little things.
Yeah, of like how you have to learn to communicate. And those things don't have to tear you apart, you know, like I think a lot of couples do communicate and figure out how to work through that. For us, like I just felt like overall I wasn't getting the support emotionally as well. Like I feel like he was incapable of being present for me. And so that's kind of why we've decided to go our separate ways, but still be very active co-parents together for our child.
Do you think, how have you like supported your son in this transition?
You know, I think that he's young, actually. I think he hasn't, like he doesn't know much different. Mm-hmm. We've been in an in-house separation for almost a year now.
So is he living with you still? So you guys aren't like totally, like he's not like gone.
Right. We're still transitioning. We are in-house separating. He is getting his own place here soon.
So it's very good. I'm sorry.
It's okay. You know, it's life, and that's how we function through things. And so I think in that sense, like I'm thankful that I don't think Isaac really knows any differently. Like I don't think he remembers doing things as a family. I don't think he remembers mom and dad ever like really being happy together. Because even when he was little, you know, like when you're getting a divorce, like I always say, these things don't happen quickly, right? Like there was a long process to like to let you get to this point. Yeah. And so it's not like,
especially when you're married and have a kid.
Yeah. So I just don't think that he's going to remember a whole lot otherwise. Like it's just his normal. Mm-hmm. But the thing I do try really hard to do, especially because one of like our main issues in our marriage for me was emotional connection and support, is I work really hard to try to support my child emotionally. And some of that happens with like behavioral stuff and just parenting styles, you know, like when he has a tantrum, I try not to discipline him for acting out. I try to sit with him and talk through the emotions, and let him have natural consequences, you know? So that's kind of where I stand on it. It's like, I'm going to try to support him because I know that his dad is not going to parent in the same way, in that way. And so it's a hard process of knowing like, all right, he's going to have to learn and adjust to two different parenting styles. And I can only do the best that I can do. Yeah. And try to be that safe space and that safe parent. Mm-hmm. Not that his dad is unsafe, but he has a primary attachment with me because he's been at home with me his whole life. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's going to be so hard. Being a stay-at-home mom, like even right now, I walked out of the room before here and I just walked in the other room and she's like, I missed you so much. I'm like, I was gone for 2 minutes. So I know that's going to be hard.
I lost you.
Yeah. Like I'm right here. Like you can't be alone. So I'm not leaving.
Yeah.
That's so funny. Well, I'll be thinking about you and sending you all the good vibes for you and So speaking of meals, like we were talking about before, how do you get dinner on the table every night and do lunches and breakfast? Or like, I feel like I snack all day and then maybe get dinner. So what do you do?
Yeah, it's a little untraditional, you know, especially with going through an in-house separation. Like we're still sharing a kitchen and like, to be honest and transparent, like that's a big trigger point for me. Like he doesn't care for things like I would. And so I have pretty much chosen to just not use a kitchen.
Oh.
So I get creative though, like we do a lot of just fresh fruits and veggies that I can just pull out of the fridge to snack on. I do a lot of microwave meals, and that like sounds terrible at first, but like I put a lot of effort into like looking for the things that, are gonna fuel us well, like the gluten-free, dairy-free stuff where I can, just because our bodies seem to react to that better. Stuff that are, proteins and veggies, a lot of that stuff. It's not just like
well, nowadays there's a lot of options, and there's a lot of healthy food now at the grocery store.
Yeah, there are a lot of options. And so that's typically what I do. Or sometimes I'll, we've agreed that like I'll take a night and meal prep some things so that we have them ready. So honestly, and you know what, one of those, like the things, I was so excited to like be like the domestic housewife, right? To like cook all the things. And after a few years, I realized like I just don't love it.
Yeah.
I just don't love cooking.
Oh my gosh, yes. I said the same exact thing. Like I feel like I just had this revelation this maybe like couple months. I was like, I hate it. I hate it. And I'm gonna say it out loud.
Right? Like some moms
like you're supposed to. Yeah.
Yeah. Some love it and more power to them. But I think for me, like I feel like I had to fit into this role and it was like necessary to be an adult. And I just was kind of like, you know what? I feel like there's things that I could be spending my time on that I would enjoy more, which is also why I hate dishes. I hate cooking because I don't want to clean up after myself. So I just don't do it.
Like when I think about cooking, I think, okay, I have to go find what I'm going to cook, like get the recipe, and I have to write it down, go to the store, find it. And then if I have kids with me, if that's going to make it even worse, then come home, find the recipe again, then get all the stuff, cut it up, make a gigantic mess, and then clean it up, and then do it again. Like that does not sound fun to me. But like you said, if you can think of ways to like fruits and veggies and even like a protein shake or microwave meals or meal prep, then it makes it so much better.
Yeah. And we do eat out a handful of times too. There's lots of healthy options for eating out as well. And if it's within the budget, like I highly recommend like the box subscriptions like HelloFresh or I'm planning on trying, there's a couple like different keto ones. They have all sorts of options out there. So if the budget allows for it, I recommend it. Like I am all about simplifying your life, right? Like just do what works.
And it helps you portion too. Like, okay, it's 2 meals. So 1 for me, 1 for you.
Yeah, definitely. So
another question. So, I mean, I guess we kind of already answered it, but what would be your biggest struggle as a parent?
I think the biggest struggle is probably just the emotional regulation, because I think what I didn't anticipate until I got to this point was that like when we parent our children, when we discipline them, we are only doing what we know and what we are taught, right? And so as I have been in counseling for 3 years, like that's part of my story is I had a huge breakdown early on, postpartum depression, anxiety, like ended up in the ER, all of that.
Yeah.
So I started counseling pretty much right away after my son was born. Mm-hmm. And so I've been doing a lot of personal work, personal development, mental health. And so as I become more aware of how I react to people, to triggers, to trauma, and as I've managed my own coping mechanisms, I'm going like, wow, like I want to equip my son to be able to cope earlier than I did.
Yeah.
So
postpartum depression is, I feel like something you can't really control.
Yeah, it is and it isn't. Like I think part of what I share in like empowering women in the same position is that I think that not always, like hormones are a huge factor, like sometimes it just happens and you don't know it's coming. But there are things that like we can control as far as your circumstances. Like for me, I honestly think that my marriage and the different circumstances that were surrounding us greatly contributed to my postpartum depression.
Yeah.
You know, like was it the only factor? No, like hormones were still at play. But I do think that there's a number of like circumstances in our lives that we probably have more power to control than we realize.
Yeah. And now that
So
you're saying it, maybe if you had the tools or the knowledge, like if I feel this way, how do I cope with it? Then even if you did get in that situation, you could cope with it better.
Yeah. So there's definitely an aspect of like, yeah, you can't control it, but I do want to empower moms to realize that like, I don't want you to feel helpless either in that, you know, like there's a lot of things you can do, even if you can't.
Since we're talking about this, do you want to go more in depth on exactly what you do?
I can kind of give an overview. Yeah. It's going to look different for everybody, but essentially like I like to think of it as you have a toolbox, right? You have a toolbox of tools to help you cope and find awareness and have grounding methods. So for me, like the first step was going to my doctor because I just didn't know where else to go. All I knew was that I wasn't functioning and then I wasn't going to make it. So I went to my doctor and immediately started counseling and medication. Knowing what I know now, I probably wouldn't have chosen to do medication, but at the time, like I just needed to. You need to do what you need to do, right? And so everybody can make their own choice as to what's going to work best for them. So counseling and medication were two huge tools for me. Eventually, I was able to transition off my medication and use just natural methods. Changing my diet was a big factor. Eating healthier, fueling my body. I got healthier. I lost 30 pounds. I empowered myself to start working out again just to feel good about myself. But it didn't all happen at once, like it's a progression. And so I think like, if you can just take one step to do something for yourself, like start counseling, that's a good first step.
And then people are so intimidated by that too.
Yeah, I was too. I was like, how do I find a counselor that will, I thought it was going to be like blind dating, like that you'd have to try a couple.
It kind of is.
Yeah, I got really lucky that I had a friend who had a counselor that she recommended to me. And I was so stressed out by having to be separated from my baby that my counselor actually said, just bring him in. Like, don't worry about finding a time when someone can babysit him, just bring him in. And I was like, what? So some of the best counseling sessions happened with him, like sitting on the floor, and we're both sitting on the floor in her office. And so it was great,
Yeah, some of them have toys and have it all set up for kids.
Yeah. So I recommend that. Like if your counselor doesn't automatically like suggest it, like just ask,
Mm-hmm.
And so, diet, counseling, medication, just educating myself, becoming more aware of like what to look for in your self-talk. That was kind of the biggest mental shift for me. It was just reading books, talking to people who were a little bit farther down the road than I was, learning how to talk to myself differently was such a game changer. I also used like essential oils with different breathing techniques was a good grounding method for me. Learning how to connect with friends, like choosing to live close to friends and family if you have that luxury to be able to like choose it if you can.
I saw someone posted like in one of the groups I'm in, how do you guys do it with no family? Like it's just you and your family out in the middle of nowhere. I was like, oh my gosh, I couldn't even imagine having to live like that because I'm with my family all the time.
Yeah.
And Matt. So we have like so much family. So being alone and be like, that would be horrible.
Yeah. And at the time we were out there by ourselves with no family.
How far were they?
So we were in Montana and my parents are here in Nebraska.
So it's like far.
Country, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
They knew like when they saw me struggling, like they did come visit a lot. So I was really blessed with the ability to do that. And you know, like when things get rough like that, I feel like you just figure it out. Like you do what you have to do, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Cause you know, like when, like if Matt would work nights and I would just know he's not coming home, and then you cope with it better. So then like, if I know he's coming home, like 2:30, I can relax. And then, but it's like, yeah, it's totally different. Like when you're in it than if you're not and looking at them like, oh my gosh, how did you do that? Yeah. So is that what you do for work, is teach people that?
Yeah. Right now, besides teaching jazzercise,
you teach jazzercise?
Yeah.
At like a studio?
Yeah, there's multiple locations that I teach at.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. But yeah, I decided to become a life coach so that I have tools and a framework to be able to walk new moms through a process to find balance in their life. And I'm not a medical professional. I do look forward to getting my counseling degree in the future, but but for now, like I can just speak out of my experience, you know, like I help moms go through what I went through and provide support and coaching to them. So
yeah. And you have community, right?
Yes. My online support community is relaunching this week. It's going to be called Depressed to Refreshed, a new mom's retreat. So I want it to be kind of like a retreat space where moms can go and find support and community. And, you know, there's so many, I just wanted to touch on that too. If for those that aren't close to family, like there are so many online support groups. And especially with the last year and a half, like people flooded online to the online communities, right? So I see posts all the time about moms, like we feel like we're putting dating ads out there, like, hey, looking for friends.
Yeah.
This is what I'm into. Yeah. But, you know, even if it feels funny, like do it. Some of my best friends, I've never met in person.
Oh my gosh, me too.
Yeah. But like over time, as you get to know them, you know, you build trust and don't be afraid to go to the park and meet other moms. You know, be safe, be smart, but
they have an app called Peanut, and it's just for that.
Yeah, I haven't used it, but I've heard about it.
Yeah, I'm kind of scared. I do Mom's Club, and I feel like just those emails, because it's like an international group, just those emails alone, kind of like, I'm like, I don't know who you are, and I have to like go meet you right now. So I'll tell my friend, go with me. But they're all, I mean, nothing's happened, and they've been an organization for so long. So yeah, but it is scary sometimes.
Yeah. Find those like reputable organizations or groups, or like going to like a kid's gym or, you know, different places that you could connect with moms.
And now that like your son's getting older and he can go in different sports and stuff now, probably 3, I feel is like a good age to start that kind of stuff. Then you meet people there too.
Yeah.
So like when I first started Mom's Club, I did it for the kids, and then you start having conversations with people and making friends with them, and then you're like, oh shoot, this is like good for me too. You don't realize, because you're all in the same boat, so you all understand when you're talking. Yeah. Need to get them in soccer soon, probably. Yeah. So those are all my questions. So if you have anything else to add about what you do, I'm going to add all your information to this post. So yeah, that's it in a nutshell. Well, thank you so much for coming on. Yeah, nice getting to know you. Yeah, this is actually the first time we've really actually talked. So I'm meeting her as everyone else is meeting her. But thank you so much. Yes, definitely. Thank you. Have a good night. All right. Bye.